to listen. And with this striving, it's interesting, about 2 weeks ago, a bunch of us happened to be in the same city at the same time, and we had a bit of a conversation about what this striving is, and we were trying to put together a course on it and figure out how to teach this. And unfortunately, we had the guy who was sponsoring the course in the room with us. I think he got very frustrated because he wanted to say, okay, it's about lettering, it's about laying things out, it's got to be about how to draw pictures. And the more we talked about it, the more we were trying to think of what the method was, the more it boiled down to just listening. And so that's what we've been here doing, whether it's actively listening during the conversations or kind of moving things behind the scenes. We've really been trying to take in everything that you guys have been saying, try to make the connections, try to find out what the thread is between the little dots. And we've been immensely helped in this by the reporters who have been at all of your tables. They've been feeding us information that we've been feverishly trying to make sense of and make it worth all of their efforts. So what we've got is a bit of a framework. We're going to have a few people come up on stage in a minute to try and fill the glass that I'm about to present, but the glass is essentially trying to see what the shape of the conversation has been. Now what we've heard from our perspective is kind of several different conversations, and it kind of makes it a little difficult when we're trying to model this out, which is who's talking here? When we're talking about a problem, whose problem is it exactly? And some of the people have been saying, well, from my perspective, there's no problem at all. Other people are in crisis mode and really trying to figure out if this is the beginning and the end of kind of the world as we know it in our industry. And so to think of vantage points, we've got kind of three main vantage points here. We've got the consumer. And I think anyone who's kind of in user experience or those kind of software industries, gaming, is very accustomed to thinking of things from that consumer side first. That what does the consumer want? What does this look like from the consumer perspective? And what we heard, some of the themes coming up around consumers in this case, was very much about the scene. And by scene, it's like it's the cultural inputs for them. It's the sense of identity that they're pulling in through the different artifacts of art and culture that they're getting. It's also about passion, and passion for music, passion for art, passion for movies, passion for all of the things that we collectively create. And very much about the norms. The norms here are generational in nature. We've heard a lot about that, the Generation Y, that these kids these days don't appreciate how much work goes into making this stuff. And also about community. And I think community's an undercutting theme that I heard in a lot of places here, that this isn't just about what music I can download on my phone, but it's my sense of who I connect with, who I really identify with in the cultural sphere, but also what things do I consume that form a sense of community around my friends, what we have in common. And demand found its way in there. I was trying to avoid some of the more market-driven words, but there it is. That's a big driver for consumer demand. It's there, and even if it happens to be consuming free things, it's there. The demand is clearly there. The other vantage point is around the artist. And I heard kind of loud and clear around the artists that creativity is not something that can come out of a factory. It's not something that's just mass-produced and stamped. And, it really is about the passion. The passion here cuts across there as well. It's about inspiration, aspiration. What are the causes that artists are really trying to connect with? What drives them to do art in the first place? What's their message? And it's also about ambition. And this comes into every aspect of it. It's not just artists pursuing their work, but it's artists actually able to pursue their work as a profession. And it's also about impulse. I was talking to Alicia when we were trying to figure out how these pieces fit together. To tell Alicia does a little bit of art, and the way she put it was, it's just you need to make something. And that's really what this is about as well for the artists, is them having a channel for creation. There's also the industry angle here, and I think depending on the conversations, it was interesting listening to the different roundtables. In some cases, this would be the dominant voice. In some cases, this would be the absent voice in the room. But I think where the sense of urgency comes from is definitely from this vantage point. And here there's the vision around how these cultural artifacts can be spread, what it means, how this can be taken beyond just a painting or a movie, how it can become a franchise, how it can reach more people. It's about ambition, again, passion here. We heard from one of the tables that you have companies that are formed with an exit strategy in mind. These aren't the companies that we're interested in. We want the companies that are full of passionate people, that the founder is passionate about what that company's doing. So what we were trying to do is take these vantage points as we went through and try and consider, okay, how do these connect together? What's shaping the conversation that we're having here? And we're really looking at it within the context of, as someone said, the pillars of the old model, which is really about the traditional value chain, the traditional supply chain of taking a kind of mass musician or something of mass appeal, the Beatles, and pushing it out through a certain channel to a large audience of people. This is a very traditional value chain, as we heard from people, that it's about recording, producing, but it's really about bricks and mortar. It's about stamping objects and shipping them out on trucks. And the crisis, as we all know, I don't think I really need to tell anyone, is that entire value chain has been displaced. And I think this may cause a tiny bit of anxiety for some people, that suddenly some kid in a dorm room created the means to cut out that entire value chain. I think this is important to emphasize, not because you don't know it. I think it's important to emphasize because it really seems to be the source of unease in so much of the conversation, is that when we look at it from these different vantage points, this is the source of why different people in the room are saying, this is great, I don't care, let's get the music to the people, or saying, this is the end. Because the infrastructure, the jobs, the passion, all of the people who worked in between the artist and the consumers of that art before, that's all at question now. And I think what many people were saying was, some people at this table are not going to be in the industry in 10 years. Players are going to disappear unless they can figure out a new position that maintains relevance within this sphere. I also heard something else really interesting. There's a big switch, and I think what's difficult about this is we want to come in and have the answer to begin with at the beginning of these conferences, but our job is to not have any answers and to just hear what you say. So the thing that I really heard loud and clear a lot of people saying was about curation. And curation kind of comes from, not from this part, but as a result of what happened with this going through digital channels, is there was, the whole thing flipped upside down. And what you have now is you've got the consumer on the one side and a vast ocean of choice on the other side. And this could be musicians, but it's not just musicians. This is New York Times, Wall Street Journal. This is whatever streaming service you use. It's all of those